本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? Welcome to Waypoint Radio, episode 270 for October 10th. Nope, October 11th. Yeah. I wish it was the 10th because we could do 10-10 2019, yeah. But it's 10-11 2019. That's nothing.
That's numbers.
There's some loose sequentiality at the beginning, and that's
I suppose.
I'm Austin Walker. Joining me here in the studio, Cado is here. Patrick recovering from a 101-degree fever, 102-degree fever, somewhere in there.
How do you get... So, day one, felt crummy. Day two, feel better. Day three, wow, just add the last 2 days together and just make it 1,000 times worse. I don't get it. I don't get bodies. They're bad.
Your body's fighting for you, and that means sometimes it gets beat up.
That's what I try to tell myself. Is like, yeah, the fever means I'm out on the battlefield, and you know, it's doing its thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of the
harder
battlefield,
to explain that to yourself at 3 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. While you're just like,
shivering and sweating.
Yeah,
playing Grindstone, waiting for the extra strength nighttime medicine to kick in.
God. Speaking of the battlefield, Field General Rob Zachney joining us. Hi, Rob. How you doing? You were on like a little break.
Doing pretty well.
Yeah, good. No fevers.
Yeah. Only this fever I've got for Breakpoint, a game released to universal acclaim. I've got my finger on the pulse of the industry.
It's so funny. It's so us. It's so Waypoint to be like, yeah, just this. It is very funny. I'm here for it. Did you play more Breakpoint?
Oh yeah.
Are you're still high on the fumes of
it's
whatever is on the island. I don't know. I like that game. I'm not.
It's a weird thing. The thing I am uneasy about with my review is how much did I discount? Just like, for instance, one of the things that comes up a lot in more critical reviews of Breakpoint, I think Heather brings it up, is that a lot of the game doesn't necessarily make a great deal of sense if you look at how it's constructed, because it's sticking to that like Ubisoft open world template. And I'm like, hell yeah, it completely like because the thing is, for me coming to this, I think this is the first one of these since I've played really since Odyssey. Having everything not dictated by RPG stats, having those stats become almost meaningless was kind of refreshing to me. But then does that also mean I probably should have been more annoyed than I was at the fact that I had to break down my level 28 G28 rifle because now I had a level 45 G28 rifle. And that's just a totally different game.
It's one of those things where it's like, for me, first of all, I think it's true for anyone who's written a game review, or for probably anyone in this call at least, that there's always that period of reflection afterwards where you're like, did I give this thing a hard time? Did I go too easy on it? Is this accurate to the way I feel about the game now that I've gotten it out of my system? Sometimes writing reviews is like writing a letter to someone, and then, you know, sometimes you write a letter and then you don't send it, and you're like, got it out of my system. I feel good about it. I'm fine now. I wrote it all out. But then you hit
a rough draft.
It's a rough draft. Sometimes you just wanted to get it out in the world. Sometimes you need to send the letter, and with a game review, you always have to hit send. And so sometimes you end up saying some stuff, and you're like, it was true when I wrote it. I will say, like, in general, I think our job as critics is to like report how we feel as honestly as possible about a thing and with as much insight. So I think you did that.
I think no. But I think what I'm putting my finger on more is, this is an argument I used to have with Dan Stapleton over at when I was doing freelance reviews for IGN a lot. Yeah. Is he was always a real stickler. He was a stickler for a lot of things, because if you worked with Dan, you discover he has lots of peccadillos that you sort of navigate around as a freelancer. Love Dan. Also, like, sometimes wanted to strangle Dan. That is the experience. But one of the things he would always push back on was this idea that you can't take parts of a game. You can't like say, I'm really focusing on these things because they kind of define my experience. He's like, you really have to be like, you can't pretend something doesn't exist. And in the context of when he and I would have those arguments, a lot of times it was about multiplayer modes in games that didn't necessarily need them or benefit from them. And his position was always, well, you say here the multiplayer kind of sucks, but that doesn't seem to have dinged your opinion of the game at all. And my response was always, yeah, because it's so throwaway. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm here for the campaign, so I don't really care too much about whether I got much from the multiplayer. And his response, and I don't think this is unreasonable, was always, you can't just say, well, here's the part I liked, and I think that's the real game, and this other thing doesn't exist. And I have some sympathy for that. With Breakpoint, it's weird because there's so much that is typical Ubisoft cookie cutter design that it's become almost transparent to me. And what defined the game was sneaking around and like sniping shit and breaking into facilities and getting the stuff I focused on in my reviews. But the thing I'm sort of reflecting on is, because it's loomed really large for other reviewers, is there something to sort of the Stapleton critique, let's call it, of if it's in the game, you know, the
right.
reviewer's equivalent of EA Sports, if it's in the game, it's in the review.
Right.
Whereas for me, I'm like, I don't really...
You're not going to judge a steakhouse on the sushi, right? Like, that's you're there for the steak. You're going to eat this. Yeah, sure, they have sushi on the menu. Awesome.
Right.
It's not good. Of course it's not good, but that wasn't what you're interested in here anyway.
Right. So it's like, yeah, Breakpoint has assault rifle levels. Sure, they don't, but they were they mattered so little that I didn't really care too much. So how much do I weigh that in when I think about it as a review? I don't know. This came up with microtransactions too. You saw this discourse around Odyssey as well, this idea that modern Ubisoft games are like basically designed to be vessels for microtransactions. But the weird thing is, I don't think that's true. Like, again, it's kind of a system in there to be somewhat ignored. And so I think this is the weird thing that comes up, particularly with the Ubisoft template. When we were talking the other week about it feels like they've adjusted sliders. This is the weird place we've gotten to, or I've gotten to, with Ubisoft open world games, where I'm like, okay, what balance did they strike with their basic design? And does this one work for me in a way that maybe the others didn't? That does make me a little bit apprehensive about the new Watch Dogs, for instance. I was thinking a bit about how like you sort of redefined what Watch Dogs was, because I played it as like, it's kind of a bad open world shooter, and you turned it into a cyberpunk
like stealth, stealth, non-violent, simulator. That to me, but like that's a great example of me writing a piece that would never have flown. People who don't know what Rob is referring to, I wrote a piece for Paste years ago called "Real Human Beings," which was about Watch Dogs and Shadow of Mordor. And I talked about how I played Watch Dogs 1 with the goal of never killing anyone. That game was not built for that. That game is built with lots of like gunfights in mind. It's like, okay, now the doors close and you have to disable everyone before the doors open. But both in those sections and in the open world, I did my best not to pull a gun out. Or like if I had a gun, to do my best to not use it to kill people. I think I ended up killing a handful of people. I talk about that experience in the game, and like every time it happened, it felt momentous and terrible, either because my car hit someone or because I was stuck in the thing was like I wasn't saying I will die and start over and do a pacifist run. It wasn't like playing Dishonored and be like, I guess I gotta load my save. It was, if my character is in a position where they're like, all right, I'm in a closet and a guy has a gun and is shooting at me, I will shoot back. That happened, and that felt terrible too, because I'd like gone so far into the game without doing it. But that is so much the Austin Walker bring your own shit to a game. And in 2014 or whenever I wrote that, there was no way that would have flown as a review at an IGN or a GameSpot or anything like that. Like, I would have felt like I had a responsibility, and even now would kind of feel like I have a responsibility to try to play the game the way, for us, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would just call it.
Maybe not us, but like in a lot of other places, you would write the more standard review, and then you would do your essay afterwards.
Exactly.
Which was our whole conversation about why we didn't do reviews at Waypoint, and we finally just said, fuck it, just make the essay the review, and we'll just live with it. We're not going to put scores on it anyway.
Experimental and weird, then it's experimental and weird. And guess what? There's lots of other places where you can go get the traditional review of what the game's content is. I will say for me, Rob, the progression stuff around the level 28 versus level 45 rifle is like, it is compelling, and not in the what a great film we saw way. In the way
I can't stop scratching this.
Yeah, the way like a fishing line is compelling for a fish once it's in its mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh wow. Oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna do another activity. Oh, there's 3 chests in there. Okay, I'm gonna do that one. Okay, I'm gonna stay connected to this because there is a constant like endorphin push. And it's like, well, is that good? Capital G good? Is that smart design? Is that like, what's that mean for the burden it takes off of needing to produce other interesting progression systems, because it has this one that just works in this like deep mind chemical way? I don't know. It's I have not made up my mind about that game yet. I still like it in the moment to moment. I want to put some more time into it for sure. But it's like, for me, I think I'm with you at the end of the day in terms of what is the focal point of what I care about when reviewing something like that.
And yet I do find myself kind of cheering for this backlash that Breakpoint has engendered, because I think at some point the Ubisoft model of making these games does need to encounter some shoals, right? And maybe force a reconsideration of how general purpose they can make this template versus how much it maybe needs to be, games need to be more specifically tailored. Because I think this is where I ended up, a lot of the frustration I see with Breakpoint reminds me a little bit more of why Odyssey left me so cold compared to Origins.
Yeah.
Which was that Origins, that stuff was there, but one, I was just more engaged with the story. I liked Bayek a little bit more, but also it didn't necessarily feel as cloyingly single-player RPG. Whereas once Odyssey hit, it was like, oh, if this guy has 10 levels on me, that's just going to be a nightmare of a fight, and I'm just going to have to beat the hell out of him before I win that fight. And that really turned me off. And so Odyssey was the one where I sort of looked at that and I was like, ugh, this Ubisoft model is getting a little bit, I'm starting to feel a little bit trapped by it the more I play it. Whereas here, I think the model almost fails so completely to encompass what you do in the game that it was easier for me to set it aside in a way that Odyssey never let me forget. Odyssey was always like, do you have your serpent bow equipped? Have you made sure that the really cool helm of Achilles is on your character's head right this second? Because otherwise you may don't even try to loot this temple. Whereas Ghost Recon, it's like, look, why don't you just shoot that guy in the head?
We just fucking shoot him in the head.
Yeah,
he will
just
die.
Try to be quiet about it.
God. Before really Breakpoint, I just want to shout out one thing which I found out since our last recording, which is, Jay Skell, the inventor who bought this island and turned it into Silicon Valley 2. The inventor who went Galt. He is played by Rodney Mullen, the skateboarder, who you might know from inventing the kickflip or being in those Tony Hawk games, which is very funny. He does a great job. Jay Skell's voice is like top tier. The cadence, like everything about the intro cutscene where this dude is like doing his best Apple, like WDCC.
By way of Owen Wilson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. It's so
We're building a world 2.0 here.
It's so good.
It's great. Future generations may not even remember us or what we did, but I think they're going to remember. I think they're going to be grateful to us.
It's so good. God, before we move on to what is a very news-heavy day, I have 2 other games we should talk about. News-heavy week, rather. One, I've been continuing to play Final Fantasy XIV. I just briefly, I don't have a big check-in here. I'm like level 26 or something, 27. I'm getting towards where I get to change.
Still on your own?
Still, 100%. 100%. I have good friends who are like, Austin, I have good friends. I want to
people
be clear.
feel bad for you?
No, people want to play with me. Yeah. But me playing this game is like me doing chores. And it's like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm going to put on a podcast. Like, it feels bad to play still. The level
You're just churning.
I'm just churning. I'm doing the worst side quests, like the most fetch questy bullshit. I'm just like run between the same 5 places 70 times in the last 3 hours trying to help these fucking sylphs who, and this is the real thing that I'm like shocked no one told me about. Did you know that like, so I've been playing this game for like, whatever, 25 hours? Mostly I've been suppressing the quote, savage beast tribes, all of whom worship their own evil god. My understanding is I will move past this and have forgotten that this was even part of the story. Because when I talk to my friends who put 100 hours into this, they're off dealing with completely other shit that's done by a different writing team and etc. But like
and it's supposed to be like a game that is like constantly commenting on like class and social mobility.
Absolutely.
And,
and there are like
there's Austin turning the wheel of progress.
It is so I started off in like the forest area, and when you're in the forest, it's like the elf zone, right? Because I was playing an archer, so I want to play with someone who's playing as whatever the proto white mage class is, because eventually you level up and you can become those other more like, you know, traditional classes. And in that zone, they were fighting with this like local tribe, and I was like, local shit, like it's local territory, you know. There's some coding here that's not great, whatever. Like, I've played video games, I've dealt with fucking Final Fantasy games before. I'm not that surprised by it. Then I get like to the bit where it's like, all right, now join up with the rest of the player base from the other starting zones, and now you're inducted into like the secret cops or whatever the fuck you're doing. You know, you're a hero, and then they're like, all right, now not only are you a hero for this like, you know, secret task force that's trying to stop the evil primals, which are these gods. The gods that are like the summons from previous Final Fantasy games, so like Ifrit and Shiva and Rama and all those characters. Like, we have to stop the primals, but also you should join up with one of the nation's military arms. These cities called the Grand Companies. So go from like capital to capital, being introduced to the main NPC from each place, like the leader of each of these 3 big cities, these 3 big city states. And in each of them, 2 things happened. One, the leader had to be like, here is our national character. Here is why you should pledge undying loyalty to us and help us in our fight against the beast peoples. Each one of them. 2, a little fucking rat asshole bastard who I know supposedly becomes cool. This guy Alphino, who is apparently like has a great arc. I believe people. I believe that in 112 hours, I'm like, y'all don't understand Alphino. Alphino's
Here's
my
what
boy.
I'm enjoying though is that it's been so clear that like other people who have experienced this over the course of like 7 years or whatever it has been since the game came out, went to its 2.0 version, which Daniel Dwyer at NoClip did a great documentary about how they reinvented a game that was an abject failure at launch and turned it into what is now a wild success. You know, as fans, you compartmentalize the bullshit. You find like, and I am not suggesting this game doesn't get good and that people have like put on their blinders.
I'm certain it does.
Fascinating. It is fascinating. Because too many people.
This little dude comes up. He's an elf, or I don't know what he's not a Makote. Those are the cat ladies. I don't remember what the different cultures and species are yet. I'm not that deep in.
Is he one of the ones that looks like kids?
No, he's not a Lalafell. Those are the little tiny ones. The Sultana of Ul'dah is a Lalafell, and this big ass like. I know. I'm just saying some shit. No. There's a character in this game.
Are we talking about Rift now?
I mean, there's a character in this game named like Tara or something like that. There's a lot of names in this game.
Isn't Taru is like that's a thing in Final Fantasy, right?
I don't fucking know. So this little dude Alf comes out.
So you love the rat.
I hate this motherfucker, and people love him. I'm so curious to know why people love Alf. He comes out and he every time he points at the banner of whatever like kingdom I'm in, and he's like, yes, red because they're warriors and blood is crimson red. Yes, the scales could represent justice or commerce, couldn't they? Boat. That's because they love boats. And like, fuck off. This little motherfucker.
That's fantastic.
He sucks
I love that.
ass. He's the fucking worst, and he's like trying to be the smartest person in the room, and I know he's gonna get his comeuppance. I know they're setting him up for a fall, but like for me to be on Twitter and be like, if you type in Alphino, which I'm not gonna tell you how to spell it, you can guess. Look at the fan art. People love this motherfucker, but his first impression is like him and his sister hanging out, and his sister says no words, and he just tries to like seem like he's the smartest dude in the room. Did you guess a spelling, Rob? I saw you typing.
I was looking up. I thought the Tarus were from Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles.
No, not the bird. Alphinaude. Alphino. You know.
Excuse me.
Okay, like Reynaud.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly like
yeah. I don't like this.
Yeah. Listen, I'm sure he goes. I'm sure that there's a whole thing. And if you love him, do not write in, because I'm telling you, I bet you're right. But you have to understand that each time he was like, the savage beast tribes of Eorzea need to be put down. And like, fuck off. You need to be put down, my guy. Someone should step on you. So you're not like that.
This is still the 2.0 stuff, right?
This is
so
still.
You haven't gotten to any of the expansions.
No, I've gotten to none. I'm not even close, dude. I'm like at the beginning of the game still, in the sense that the world has opened up to me. And like, it seems like what's in front of me is going to each of these beast tribes and suppressing them and
fucking them up
so that they don't summon their evil gods. Listen, to be fair, I've been told.
Once you've taken the king's shilling from Letter of Mark Tom Nook, you just have to do what you're gonna do.
The thing that I've heard is that eventually you get to meet some of the good ones. If you grind some quests, you learn
a whole lot of asterisks in this conversation about Final Fantasy.
So I'm gonna keep.
So I've been told, supposedly, reportedly,
See,
allegedly.
And what's interesting about that, Patrick, is if you think about the after 150 hours with these people feel really differently. Like I've heard after 1,000 hours, you will identify really strongly with Alphino and all the kingdoms, and suddenly it won't seem so bad.
But it's supposed to.
The game is working
I want to be clear that I am purposefully hoisting myself. I am setting myself up because by the time the holidays hit, I will be probably into Heavensward, the first DLC, where I've unlocked a class that I'm super excited to try because I hear the story is good. And I bet I come around on it, but I need to record for posterity that this is where I'm at. That playing this game is worse than washing dishes. If I could level up by washing dishes, not even mine. If I could take a second job, if I could come back, if my day job here was re-offered to me and you told me I got levels in Final Fantasy.
Hold on.
Also, yeah, what?
You
need
use
an
a
app
boost.
on your phone, like a Pokemon Go, where as you walk, your characters are also leveling.
So wait, yes, that would be great. What'd you say, Cado?
And yet you wouldn't use a boost.
So the boost gets rid of the class quests. If the boost just made me level 75 and let me play through all of the quests, I would do it. I looked into it. I dreamt that there was
You've gotten 900 emails about these power boosts.
Of course, they're $25.
They really want us to power boost.
There are items you can use to increase how much XP you get. The two that I have, one of them stopped working because I'm over level 25. The other's about to stop working because I'm about to be level 30. Yeah. And so it's
I could probably get you some.
I don't want. They don't exist.
Emails.
This is what I'm saying. Is the thing that I want. Is just an XP doubler in the sense of a mobile game. Just fucking give me the extra XP. So all I have to do is the main quest and my class quest, and it's basically been that. It's just that those things have also sucked and not. It goes back to the Breakpoint thing, which is I want that endorphin hit. I haven't gotten gear. I haven't gotten a single drop that's mattered to me in 10 hours. I don't understand what's happening. When you get the drops, I don't know if I just got something super good in all of my slots 10 hours ago or whatever, but whenever you finish a quest, you get an option on whenever, but often when you finish a quest, it's all right, do you want to take this belt or this hat or these gloves or this $2? And every time right now, I'm give me the $2. I don't even care. It's not even that much money. I don't care. Those gloves fucking suck. Throw those gloves out. Give me the money. And so I'm close. It's the main story quest is starting to catch up to me. I mean, the thing that happened is
cut to 2 months later.
I know.
I'm so close. I feel it. I'm 2 expansions in. I'm going around the corner.
No, listen, if I get to the first expansion and I am not, if by the time I hit the end of A Realm Reborn, I'm not bought in, I'm done.
Yeah.
I know I already bought those expansions.
I don't believe you. I don't
dude,
believe you.
there's
4 months
no
from now,
way.
Austin's being like, guys, I did it. I beat the raid boss, and I successfully converted the Savage Beast peoples to the true faith.
Well, the thing is, the Nier Automata stuff is coming, and you
Yeah.
have to have beaten the most recent expansion all the way to play that stuff.
Right.
Hang on,
This is why
hold on.
whatever you're saying is horseshit.
When does
What
that
Nier
drop?
Automata stuff?
We've got a date on the Nier Automata stuff.
Yeah, it's soon.
Right?
Rob?
Yoko Taro wrote a whole not expansion, but like there's
It's a raid.
Yeah,
some
but,
amount
like-
of stuff.
Are we saying, like,
How long would it take to get from
in
that?
the anthology style, like, there's some Nier Automata type themes from, or is it
No, dude.
Nier Automata is here?
Nier Automata is here.
Like, yo, that's 2B.
It's called Your Hot Dark Apocalypse. Like it is very goofy.
So it would fall onto that. Well, it's one of those side things that falls into that giant spreadsheet of things that are technically all related to Nier, even if they're not the Nier
Oh,
games.
where the musical
I
was?
guess I wonder if the musical's involved. Or I wonder if this is as canon
right,
as the
as the
musical
musical.
or the novel that never got translated or
Yeah.
whatever, you know?
I mean, if Yoko Taro's directly involved, I would assume so.
You ever think about Nier Automata and be like, yo,
I never finished that game.
There are
I really need to finish
rumors.
that game.
What? What do you? Okay, sure.
Cado, you would like that game.
I know.
where that game goes.
I
a lot.
know.
And that game actually makes it like very easy to just like plow, like put it on easy, put on some boosts. Like
You don't
can
get a
just
shirt for
basically
finishing it, do you?
You should. You fucking should. If you get more than 10 endings, the traditional 6 or whatever, plus bonus ones, you should
Right.
get a shirt.
I finished Nier Automata, and all we got was this existential depression.
Sure.
I don't need Nier for that.
All right, we should
true.
take a break, and then we should talk about existential shit, which is to say, the news this week. We will be right back. We're back. I realized I went to break without briefly talking about the one other game I wanted to talk about. Fuck, because I got so worked up. John Wick Hex is out. I don't know, Cado, you put
yes.
time into this?
Yeah,
What did you think?
a little bit. It's not as.
Can you set up what it is?
Yeah, we should set up what it is. Yeah, it's how to describe it other than like a grid-based what's the word? Frozen Synapse is kind of what I think of it.
I'm
as.
glad you said Frozen Synapse before I did.
Yeah.
I was like, am I going to say the one who fucking says Frozen Synapse? It is. So you're playing as John Wick.
Yeah.
It is a tactics game in which you control John Wick's movements. You can click to move John, to put him into a crouch mode, to fire your gun, throw your gun, and then do a couple of melee things. A strike, a push, like you grab someone, push them, and you walk with them, or a takedown where you kind of flip them and move your position.
Yeah.
You
There's also one last thing, which is to refocus.
refocus, use a bandage, reload your gun,
Right.
And roll if you're kneeling, if you're crouched.
Yeah.
Which putting all those things together, when you do any of them, they appear at the top of the screen on a timeline that runs from left to right. Also up there are the actions of any enemy who you are aware of. So if there's an enemy who's walking, it will show on the top the length it will take for them to do that walk, and then if they're going to shoot you, it'll show on the timeline when they will start shooting. This is probably why you make the comparison to Frozen Synapse. It's
Yeah.
why I would too. It's like,
Yes.
oh, okay, this is about like planning against what your enemy is going to do in something like not real time, but like there are seconds on the screen.
Right.
Like it is turn based in that like there are kind of ticks of the clock that you're
It like
stuck to.
and you'll stop when either an action you're taking is interrupted, you notice someone new,
Right.
or your action is completed.
Right. So if you hit shoot, you go shoot, and then time freezes and you can do something else.
Yeah.
If you turn a corner and you see someone, the time freezes. If you tell John to walk down an alleyway that splits into T junction and there's someone that he sees when he turns, like, okay, it stops and lets you continue. How far in are you?
Not very far. I think I'm at the end of the first level, and like the levels are kind of segmented into different like scenes essentially.
Right.
Some of them with their own like narration from this the two I forgot their names, but the two like characters that from the movies, the one that Lance Reddick plays, and the other guy, the guy who's like the head of the hotel.
How am I?
Swearingen.
Yeah,
and,
Ian McShane.
and
Ian
Daniels.
McShane. Yes. Swearingen and Daniels, and now Troy Baker doing his best Willem Dafoe impression. If you ever wanted to hear Troy Baker do a Willem Dafoe, like it's not bad. It ain't bad. But yeah, it is Daniels and Swearingen. They're there, and they're like solid. And they're narrating about basically a prelude to the John Wick movies, in which the Troy Baker character Hex has seemingly tried to make a play inside of the world of the John Wick universe, make a play for power that puts him at odds against the
when you paused on make a play, I thought like he's putting on a production
that would be so good.
Live theater, and he has to be stopped.
He must be stopped. John Wick, get him.
The first rule of the assassin world is you don't do an off Broadway play about assassin world.
I would go see Assassin World if they did a John Wick musical
called
Assassin World. That might be good, actually.
Keanu could do whatever he wants right now.
Yeah.
Just the lobby of the Continental.
Yeah.
Just
it's a side story. It's not even about John. Like, the John Wick character, it's like the Iceman Cometh does not enter the screen until Act 3. It's just like the the people in the Continental Hotel lobby, the people who move in and out. God, Hotel Artemis could have been that, and it just wasn't. It's an all right movie. Anyway, in John Wick Hex, it is because it's like a single character tactics game. The thing that it's going for is like high density of interesting decisions. Imagine a tactics game where you only have, imagine Final Fantasy Tactics, or imagine Fire Emblem, or imagine, any of these games, Frozen Synapse, where all you have is one character. And to make that one character gameplay really interesting, you have to always be like, okay, what should I be doing?
Right.
And so if like you have a person walking towards you down, you turn a corner, you see a guy at the end of the alleyway. What do? And on paper, I think the way the game wants to hit you, and I think for me the first level of playing it, the first full like chapter, I'm now 2 chapters in, I had a lot of these where I was like, okay, there's a guy at the end of the alleyway. Do I shoot him? But if I shoot him, it burns ammo. And if I burn all my ammo, then I have to pick up a new gun. Okay, so maybe I like try to charge him, but if I try to walk towards him, he might pull out his gun and shoot at me. In fact, I can see he's going to shoot at me. Okay, well maybe I like literally duck behind this dumpster, wait for him to approach, and then stand up, or like even from a crouch, I think, do a melee attack, a takedown that takes him down. But if I do a takedown, it'll burn my focus, and if I burn my focus, then it's going to be harder for me to dodge out of the way from other incoming attacks. And you're supposed to be doing all this like tight calculus, but now 2 levels in, I will say that I'm mostly not doing that calculus. I hit this like, so I'm now through the first 2 chapters, and the boss fight of the second chapter, which interestingly is not the end of the second chapter. I like that quite a bit. It's right in the middle. It's like you fight the boss of chapter 2, bosses are hard to shoot, is one of the rules they introduce. It's hard to just shoot them from a distance, so you have to melee them to lower their, like, this other bar that they have called focus, until they could be shot a bunch. And in the first fight against one of those guys, it was, like, pretty dynamic, and, like, I did a takedown on one guy, and then I, like, knocked another guy out, and I threw my gun, and I picked up the gun from the guy I knocked out, and then I, ran up, and I, did a takedown on the boss, and then I shot him while he was on the ground or whatever. I was like, all right, that's some John Wick shit. By the time I get to the second boss, my playstyle had become so conservative that I was literally waiting by spawn points for enemies to come out so I could do a takedown, and then wait for another one to come out so I could do a takedown, and then one would come out from another spawn point, and I'd hit shoot, then another one would come out and I'd do a takedown. I walked between each of these spawn points to clear them out entirely, and I waited for the boss. I opened the door to the boss, I killed the one guy with the boss, I retreated, I took care of all the ads, and then I went to the boss, threw him on the ground, and then hit like the weakest melee strike 3 times in a row to get rid of all of his focus, and then hit shoot 4 times in a row. And it was like, none of this feels good. Like this is now I'm just gaming the system in a way that does not look or feel like the John Wick model. And that's a bummer to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think even early on, it didn't quite. So you can do this thing where you can rewatch your you can rewatch your entire like the section that you just played in one like go, like it records it along the way. And it like it looks silly a lot of the times. It's like trying for the kind of density and action that those movies have, but it never quite actually hits it. And I feel like part of that for me feels like it's this like grid system that they're on, where it's like your movement and stuff is all based on like little pips on the ground that you can see, and none of them it like you don't flow through the space in a very natural way. A lot of times they're doing weird zigzags.
Yeah,
instead of
it's hex based. There's no, when you say grid based, like I want to be clear, it is not a grid in a traditional sense. It's hex based, which means you do have to take these like angled pathways.
Yeah,
you're kind of always serpentine.
Yeah. And it just, like something about that style never really felt in line with the kind of smoothness of action that you like imagine from those fight scenes and stuff from the movies. And it didn't also like, I don't know. It felt like there were a few too many options that didn't feel like distinct enough to try. Like I could never quite the difference between like
the melee
there was one thing, the melee stuff feels like when there was this thing where like I assumed push would allow me to push someone into someone else.
Nope.
Right? The sort of interaction that you could imagine happening in one of those, like you use someone as a body shield
and into the breach style push.
Things that like you expect to be able to have the enemies interact with each other more than you actually can. Like I tried to do a takedown where I threw someone into someone else. It's like, no, you can't. That's not what.
Also, sometimes your move will just be interrupted without really being clear why it was interrupted like that. Like plenty of times I was like, I'm gonna do a takedown, and then it stopped, and now I have to put in a new command.
Right.
I will say right after that second boss that I had such a miserable, like not super interesting time with, the level immediately after that introduced new enemy types and a new gun type, and was like as far as like level layout goes, really interesting. And like immediately it's like, oh, this, if every level could feel like this kind of escape level, or maybe it was the last level in that sequence, but it was like a kind of a garage, ended with like a garage that was filled with like a small garage filled with like cars and crates and barrels and stuff, and then like kind of a section beyond that and or before that. And the move from the first of those sections to the second, dealing with this like martial artist who was like a way tougher melee fighter, picking up like an Uzi basically. The way that those things interacted was actually really good and did make me think I had a lot more options to play with. But I still could not quite help but think, I mean, this is the most me thing, is like, this is a pretty linear tactics game that is trying to do one thing pretty well, versus something like Frozen Synapse 2, a game that is trying to do way too much probably for its own good, that is like really biting off as much as you could possibly chew. And for me, moment to moment was actually creating that sort of cinematic combat stuff that I really loved, despite not having all these little intricate options for like, do you want to do a takedown? Like there's no, a character in Frozen Synapse 2 has one weapon, and that's what they have, and that's the one thing they do. They don't even, you can't even throw a punch if you're in punching distance. And yet those encounters have had a certain John Wick quality to them, or that style of like gunfight somehow. I should play more Frozen Synapse. It's good. Anyway, okay.
One quick shout out, as
Yes.
long as we're just doing.
Please.
I've been playing a lot more Grindstone, technically in a fever state, but an interesting thing about that game that I'm a little frustrated with, and I'm curious if this will be something that gets addressed in a patch or is just indicative of like the launch games for Apple Arcade. But I get the sense that there were a bunch of games that were already going to the App Store that just sort of got picked up and brought to Apple Arcade because there are like elements of Grindstone and other games that I've played part of Apple Arcade where you see very clearly where the monetization would have existed. Like very specifically in Grindstone, it's you have special items that allow you to do things like jump to any tile on the map, which is like incredibly useful if like you have a bad pattern in front of you that you're trying to weave through, or just health, right? So if you die on a particular stage, there's no punishment except that you come back with 1 piece of health. You can have up to 3, and it costs you 10 of like the main gem currency. But there doesn't seem to be like any reason to charge you anything to just like have 3 hearts. Like all it means is that like if you butt up against a difficult stage, then you suddenly need to go spend time grinding on older stages that don't get you anything other than just grinding. And it feels like that is a vicissitude of like a game that was otherwise going to charge you for, like, I can't say this with certainty, but I find myself like continually frustrated where I haven't run into a moment where I do need to go back and grind, but like I do find myself hesitating where sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I can do this on just 1 health. Maybe I can do this on 2 health. And it's possible that is what the balance of the game is going for, but it seems more likely in my mind that it was originally going to make you shell out for that sort of thing.
Or a timer or something. That
or
was
a timer,
like
some sort of mechanism that would have been built in. Right. Yeah. Come back tomorrow and you'll get a free, 3 hearts, or you can just, pay $1. I mean, I have no idea, but it is one of the things that like it comes across as frustrating in a game that doesn't necessarily need things like that. So just an interesting observation that I've noticed in a couple of games where you can sort of see the markings of, like, even if they changed midstream, months ago, it's like, well, once a game is built a certain way, it's probably difficult to sort of like undo all that stuff if it's on some level fundamental. But I wish I could put on like an easy mode that's like, doesn't change the difficulty of the game. It's just like, look, I don't want to just refill my health when I die and just like let me take a crack at the puzzle again. Yeah. But Grindstone remains very good.
Yeah. Rob, by the way, I just wanted to check in. You did not end up putting more time into Warsaw, right? After we talked about it?
I did a little bit.
I also did.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you're still in the same place with that game, which was, just to reiterate, I was like, wow, it's really fucking hard.
I started to get on a little better with it. One of the interesting things, I think they changed something. So what I had played before, when the first time we talked about it, you were launched from the tutorial into the main campaign. And the damage carried over from the tutorial into the main campaign. When I restarted, they make you go through the quick tutorial combat, but everyone emerged into the main campaign at full health.
Right.
And that made a huge difference because rather than having to do the first mission with everyone down by about half or a third of their hit points, suddenly I was able to field a team that was fully healthy. And then the sort of economy of health and resources began to make a lot more sense than it did in the pre-release version we played. It is still a really tough game. I think there's something they've done that's there's a very weird thing about Warsaw. I'm curious what you make of this. You have 2 classes of characters in Warsaw. Yeah. You have your named characters who are like the main player character, personalities with backstories, etc., that have a bunch of abilities and gain an experience and skills and can be customized throughout the campaign. And then you have generic like resistance members who are much more like what you encountered in Darkest Dungeon, but it's this weird thing that Warsaw is consistently doing, which is being like Darkest Dungeon, but also almost needlessly different or different for difference's sake. So the weird thing is the named player characters can be developed and they can have skills swapped in and out the way you could with Darkest Dungeon characters, but they're not generic and they're not infinitely replaceable the way that characters were in Darkest Dungeon. Yeah. The generic, infinitely replaceable characters in Warsaw don't develop. You can't swap their skills in and out of their toolset per mission. And so you end up having these you end up having a campaign where you're going to have to field these red shirts and possibly extensive rosters of red shirts. But then they're not but then there's no XP. You can't develop them. They're not going to become more powerful. So any mission where you don't have it mostly comprised of named characters, you're basically wasting an XP opportunity, and you need to develop these characters. You also need the flexibility they provide. And so I'm in a weird place with it because it does generate a lot of tense missions. I am having a lot of like pins and needles types runs through the city of Warsaw as I try to complete a mission, but maybe avoid optional combat if I possibly can, because I've gotten the XP I need. I cannot take any more damage.
Totally.
That's kind of cool, but also I just question these trade-offs that have been imposed on me.
Yeah, I'm in a pretty similar spot. I think I turned a corner with it and started really enjoying it when I got my second new main named character. You start the game with 3. You start with like a medic, a sharpshooter, and like a heavy machine gunner, basically. I guess the sharpshooter I'm saying is not actually a sharpshooter. He's like just like a rifleman. And then you immediately start supplementing them with random characters. And it was really tough going for me at first too. But when I got my my 4th and 5th named characters, the economy started to make sense to me. I'm pretty consistently doing a thing where I send out 2 named units or 2 hero units, 2 officers. Yeah. I don't know how we want to talk about these characters that do level up, and then 2 like recruits who will never ever, like you said, progress in any meaningful way, but can provide a healing, a healing ability if your medic is not available for you this mission because she's hurt. And I think I have had a positive relationship with what that does to the economy and with what that does to needing to cycle your hero characters in and out. There have been missions where I've been like, fuck, I could send 3 like recruits and 1 hero, but I could send 2 heroes but one of them's gonna be beat up. Let me take the risk and send the beat up one. And like I've done that and taken that risk, and it's turned out, to be a nail biter. And not in a bad, like it's been a good, that tension has worked for me. But I do think a lot about the way this game abstracts a lot of stuff from the Darkest Dungeon model. Like it's clear that this game does not have like the sort of like itemization of Darkest Dungeon, which was this like really complex thing with small bonuses coming from special items you picked up from the loot. It doesn't have anything like the upgrade system for your base itself. Darkest Dungeon had that as like a core element, was you're upgrading your base. And so it ends up like finding ways to not cut corners, but try to focus in on just basically do the missions, keep the morale up on the places in Warsaw, the various districts, and keep yourself like focused on that core economy of, do you have enough resources? Like I ran out of bullets in this game, which is wild. There have been a couple of missions where I've been like, I'm out of fucking rifle rounds. How do I get through this? And I have genuinely liked those moments, because what I end up doing is like relying on those recruits who maybe they have a pistol instead of a rifle. It's like, I got all this pistol ammo, or I hadn't realized this. Did you get the sniper? The like woman with the hoodie?
No.
Oh my God. Dude, she has like a submachine gun, which uses light pistol rounds. And then she has an ability called Snipe. She has 2 incredible like completely game-changing abilities that do feel like distinctly different from anything in Darkest Dungeon and feel like really clever. She has an ability called Snipe, which she can use on any enemy with the frontline tag. So that's like enemy grunts or dogs or whatever. The rifleman has an ability that's similar, that's like passive bonus damage to enemies with frontline. Snipe says, kill an enemy frontline unit. Takes 2 stamina to use. Kill. So I'm like opening missions up, Rob. I'm just like, yo, handle this. Bop, done. And like, she's incredible at that. Her other ability, Rob, is called, it's like catch off guard, or it's something like, it's not mop up, but something like that. Something like mop up. And it gives her 3 charges of a thing, of a buff that says, if an enemy who is under 20% health acts, kill them. And it's incredible because they get to do their
I need
act.
her.
They get to like throw their grenade or like do their like rallying cry or whatever. But like, guess what? That Nazi is dead. And as far as like games in which you get to kill Nazis go, it feels very good to kill these Nazis. They've done a good job of making me like invested in trying to protect this place that I know has gone through some fucking shit. And yeah, I don't know. I think I've come around on it. I need to put more time into it for sure. But I want to now. Whereas last time I was like right on the edge of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do I want to suffer?
Yeah, I think the thing keeping me at arm's length from it is mostly that each time I go out, it's doing this is going to be very stressful to get through,
yes.
Type thing.
There's no milk run. There was no cakewalk.
Yeah. Have you used Ploy at all?
I forget what that even does.
That's the one that takes away an enemy activation.
Oh, yes. One of my recruits has it, and late in a fight, it's super useful to keep them from doing anything and let you just whittle them down. But like they need those things because otherwise it's like a really long Darkest Dungeon fight, and Darkest Dungeon fights are already really long. So yeah. This sounds like we should both keep playing this game, that maybe this game has some stuff.
Yeah, I wish, to your point about ammo, I wish it were easier to track ammunition. There's just something about the way it's presented.
Yeah.
I ran out of rifle rounds at one point, and it's not visually distinct enough which pile of ammunition you're drawing from. And then the icon in your inventory is different from the tooltip icon for the power you're activating. So I had just a nightmare battle where like I ran out of rifle. It's called long ammunition.
Yeah.
I ran out of it because my dude had to keep using the 3-bullet activation rather than those single shot because he needed to be picking off people. Like I was using that ability basically to target enemies in any row that I wanted. And I just ran through all that ammunition, and I hadn't been remotely cognizant of how quickly I was burning through it because I looked at my inventory and at a glance, there's a big pile of ammunition, but it was increasingly just pistol bullets, and it wasn't it wasn't the rifle ammunition. And so I had a really frustrating mission that I had to basically like kill off this German squad by using my 2 crappiest recruits' pistols and like just have them go to the front, get wrecked by these Germans. My medic is like frantically like healing them every single turn while they chip these dudes down from like 60, 70 hit points down to 0 using pistol shots that are doing like 10 if they hit. Which frequently they don't.
Yeah, I've had that fight. And that type of fight is just like a drag. Anyway, I'm going to keep putting time into it. The hearing that you also turned a corner with it gives me hope that this is not just like I had a good session, but maybe there is like keep digging at it. All right. It seems like it's been a pretty newsy week. All said, where do you want to start? You want to start with the easy thing? PS5 2020?
Yeah, let's do the easy thing first.
All right. Patrick, PlayStation 5 is coming. Another Wired article, right? Is that?
Yes. For whatever. Well, I guess there was actually this time a PlayStation blog.
Okay.
But there was a Wired article in which the same author, who had an interview with Mark Cerny some months back, that doled out a couple of the first details about what we assumed to be and now know to be called the PlayStation 5. They confirmed what we expected, everything that we'd heard behind the scenes. That is the same with the new Xbox, is that it's coming next holiday. Sort of like the high level stuff that is new is for some reason they won't just call it the DualShock 5. They're saying it's our new controller. It's we haven't called it anything yet. And the author is basically like, it just looks like a DualShock 4, but they won't tell me what the name is. And the main difference in the controller is it has something called the haptic feedback. So the notion is that like, hey, when you're like jumping on a bridge, like the button can give like a certain amount of resistance to reflect what the player is doing. If like you're pulling the trigger on a gun, like it'll feel like, you have to really like pull it down in order to do so. And the Wired author was given a couple of demos from that kind of demonstrated that could be neat, I guess. Still thinks like the main thing that they're hanging their hat on with the PS5 is this like custom SSD that is supposed to, as we already knew, cut down on loading times to be basically nil. So the new stuff that they're saying it will open up is games have to be installed on the PS5, which I'm not super shocked that I won't be shocked if that's just sort of like standard practice going forward. One of the advantages of that supposedly will be, you can install the single player, but not the multiplayer part of a game. So if you're trying to save space, which is probably going to be at a premium, given that I believe this week we found out that the Call of Duty Modern Warfare, at least on PC, is going to be 175 gigs to install.
It's so big.
Which none of that is shocking. The shift to next gen, where things like 4K textures, like embracing a 4K tech, is going to just shoot up size demands on hard drives. So like that is going to happen. And one of the things they sort of mentioned that was possible with the PS5 is that it's not clear how this is going to work in the UI, but that you'll be able to like look at what's happening in other games without booting them up. Like the game will be able to like keep them in a multiple games in some sort of suspension state, where you can like, it's not really clear what that means. Maybe that's something that developers will figure out as these SDKs go out. That like weird looking Star Trek device that people thought maybe was some BS actually is the PS5 dev kit.
It's so funny.
Which is cool. Like it's like that. It looks more like a bomb than anything else. But it's a neat looking piece of weird tech. Holiday 2020. Oh, and also as a Bluepoint, the studio that has done a number of remasters.
I'm begging you. This is the most important.
The PS5.
Yeah.
Fuck the PS5.
I'm with you.
Because I am now fully invested in the narrative that everything I've heard about the PS5, this is going back full 2 years now, has been a huge emphasis on history. And that it's going to be like the kind, I don't know exactly how that's going to pan out, but it's going to be the sort of thing where it's not just about the future, it's also about the past. That means your ability to play lots of those games. And so there has been rumors for ages, and rumors more or less people just trying to project something they want into the world, which is the Demon Souls, a game that has only ever been released on the PS3. Although if you play through emulators, you can play it at 60 FPS.
It looks good.
And, like it's come a long way in terms of that stuff. And but that Bluepoint has said that like their new game they're working on is the biggest remake they've ever done. And that, boy, wouldn't it make, like I pitched to Austin like in a DM. I was like, can't you just imagine like an opening press conference for Sony where it's like Bluepoint in collaboration with From Software, like the past becomes the future. Like Demon Souls in itself, like represents something that they're trying to accomplish with the PS5. And one thing they clarified in this Wired piece was that the ray tracing is not going to be handled on a software level. It'll be handled on the GPU at a hardware level, which means more games will be able to support it. It won't be like a huge hit to frame rate in the way it would be if it was being handled at the software level. So like the Souls games that often have terrific lighting, and Demon Souls specifically has some really atmospheric lighting, like Tower of Latria.
Yeah.
Like with some ray tracing,
so many areas in that game that would look so good with ray tracing and like built from the ground up for it, to be clear. I would like that to be a thing. I'm curious if
I'll now be disappointed, even though there was no actual concrete evidence. I am planting my flag to be disappointed if that is not.
What are some other things that you
I can't figure out what the other games would be. What else would Bluepoint, if you try to think of like...
It would be a Sony first party?
Solid.
Yeah,
I guess
it could be. It could be
because they own Demon Souls.
It's funny because
right?
I was going to say the thing that came to mind would be like a Silent Hill. It would be something that the developer wouldn't be making now, which Konami is exactly it.
Yeah,
Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah,
but that would be. I don't make a Metal Gear Solid remake.
I think MGS is too. That's even too big in scope for a studio like them. You'd be talking about like redoing voice. I mean, like we went down this road on the GameCube,
right? And
it was not necessary.
Whereas what else could it be?
I don't know.
The Getaway.
Like they've done the big ones, right? Like did Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
The kinds of games that are like languishing on an older platform. Like Demons is just like the most obvious
GTA
choice.
3 through San Andreas or something. But that again feels like it's such a big.
But Rockstar would do that on, they would want that on every platform.
Absolutely.
Like this is going to be, like people forget how early, like relatively speaking, Bloodborne came in sort of like the PS4's cycle. And if, part of Sony's commitment on PS5 is going to be, like we love you hardcore gamers. Like, I mean, you don't get more. Like Demon Souls was a niche release, but those are straight up blockbusters at this point. And to come full circle on demons would be it's just a game that a lot of people haven't played. And I went back and played it prior to, I can't remember if it was before Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3 came out, but I went back and played Demons. And it's terrific. Like Tower of Latria is like maybe the best area in any Souls game. Like who's that boss with the giant creature in the sky? I forget.
That is the why am I blanking? It's not the Sky King. That's not a thing.
No.
Fuck. It's like the giant manta ray. We've talked about this.
Sky boss.
Sky King's from something.
Storm King is Dark Souls.
No,
is
it's Storm King. It's Storm King. I think it's Storm King.
Yeah, okay. But there's someone in Dark Souls 3 who is also a king.
Yeah.
That fight.
That fight, you use the same weapon. You use the Storm Ruler, the like giant sword that goes like woof.
Yes.
That's a Demon Souls reference in Dark Souls 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. They should make that. There are areas in Demon Souls.
You know what? Don't rebalance that game. Let Magic continue to like. I streamed that game. God. People were so mad at me that I decided I'd never done Magic in Souls before, and so my thought was, I'm gonna do a Magic build because I mostly just want to experience Demon Souls.
Oh, you already played Dark Souls by then. This is what you're okay.
Yeah, I played Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 2.
Oh, okay.
And just Demon Souls was, and so I was like, I'm gonna do a Magic build, and people were like, Magic is broken in Souls to begin with, and it's especially broken in Demon Souls, which is true. Like you could just like walk through the game going boop, 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 just kind of like
it's true.
Make your way through. So I'll be curious like what the, you know, I know with Shadow of the Colossus they did some around the edges tweaking in collaboration with this designer. I'm torn on whether what I would like them to do is go in and just like do a visual revamp, or would it be work with Miyazaki and do like a Demon Souls 2.0? Like I don't know. I think I'm more inclined to think they would just do a straight visual remaster
I've spent the last
and not futz with the balance.
10 minutes. I spent the last 10 minutes looking at other games that it could be, looking at best of lists. And the thing that I'm running into is just like on the design front, most of this doesn't hold up. Like no one should remake Twisted Metal 1. No one should remake just like, we just did Tomb Raider 1 again. Because what we've learned is you have to remake the game. You have to redesign the game.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the same characters.
Or just accept it for what it is. Like it's not a tentpole thing, right? Like you don't in an article announcing the PlayStation 5, like you're by pairing it with that, you're setting expectations to a certain floor, and like just a lot of those games don't.
Yeah, the stuff that makes sense for me is like RPGs. Action RPGs like Demon Souls, regular RPGs, Final Fantasy Tactics, or
Legend of Dragoon,
for instance.
Oh,
Vagrant Story, for instance. Anyway, we'll see. I'm excited for this to be at E3 2020. Is Sony still going to be at E3 2020? Who could say?
I don't know. I mean, look, they announced PS5 with a tweet.
It's true.
Like we live in a different world. I mean, I know there was a Wired article, but I mean, this is usually there's a big press conferences, and this was a tweet. So
wait, did they do the thing again?
We tweeted it out.
Did they tweet like they tweeted last time?
What did they do last time?
The tweet for was it PS3 or PS4? PS4 is like, that's right, PlayStation 4, and like that's the whole tweet.
No, I mean, at this point, I think we know. Too many people just knew in their heart they weren't going to do anything weird.
Yeah.
All right. Well, PS5 2020, as expected. Second news story this week. Ongoing big weird news story. Lots of different angles to cover. On Monday, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay in my lane. I don't want to talk too much about the stuff that's going on in Hong Kong right now. I forget why it even came up. Why did it even come up?
The NBA stuff. This is prior to, I believe when we recorded.
Yes.
The reason it came up was because I checked to Twitter and it was like, it looked like James Harden was in a hostage video explaining why he couldn't like talk about anything but basketball.
Yes. And I was like, this is a complex situation, more complex than is often, talked about in media. But also, it hasn't hit our world yet, so we don't really need to dig into it. Boy, what a week it has been. Patrick, I'm looking at the front page here. I went to waypoint.vice.com. Activision Blizzard suspends Hearthstone Pro player for supporting Hong Kong protests. Mm-hmm. Popular Hearthstone commentator says he'll no longer work with Blizzard. We talked to Hearthstone Pro players who are quitting the game in protest. So many news stories here about this that I think I don't have them all on the same screen. Blizzard's Hong Kong scope
yeah.
is officially an international incident. Can you give me the rundown? Give us the rundown here on what kicked off.
I'll read from I've been doing a lot of this reporting in collaboration with Matthew Galt.
Shout outs.
I'll read from his story. No, he's been doing really, really good work this week as we've been kind of tag teaming this. And so this is from his piece from a couple of days back. Activision Blizzard suspended Hearthstone pro Blitzchung on Tuesday after he spoke up in support of protests in Hong Kong during a post-match interview during Hearthstone's Asia-Pacific Grandmaster Tournament on October 6th. 2 days later, on October 8th, Activision Blizzard suspended him from competing in Hearthstone esports tournaments for a year, rescinded his $3,000 in winnings from the tournament, and fired the 2 people who interviewed him. Side note on that, like when Blitzchung's protest occurred, which I'll elaborate on in a second, the 2 casters ducked under their table as this occurred, knowing that what was happening was probably going to be something that blew up. Each year, Hearthstone's best players compete in regional tournaments that narrow the field to 48 Grandmasters. After the regionals, the Grandmasters play for a $500,000 prize pool. After winning a match in the Asia-Pacific Regional, Blitzchung streamed a post-victory interview while wearing ski goggles and a gas mask, a look often worn by protesters in Hong Kong to mitigate the effects of tear gas. Quote, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our time," Blitzchung said on the stream, a phrase that's become a rallying cry for protesters in Hong Kong. And since then, Blizzard has not said anything beyond the suspension and the rescinding of earnings. As far as I know, based on folks that I've talked to at Blizzard, there has not been an internal messaging over this. There has been some brief, relatively minor in the grand scheme of things, protests at Blizzard, mostly centered around people hanging out around this statue of an orc that is at their Irvine, California offices that has a bunch of now sort of phrases that have a sense of irony because they say things like, let me pull up some of the phrases from this other piece. Gameplay first, think globally, and every voice matters. And I wrote a piece, one of them that you mentioned there was about the most, Blizzard sort of went silent as this all continued to blow up. The first official piece of business that was Blizzard related was a Hearthstone collegiate tournament in which American University, a team based out of, I believe, Washington, D.C., these 3 19-year-olds realized they had a moment in which they could say something. They could participate in what was happening here. And so when I spoke to them yesterday, they said they were prepared to say something if they won, but also realized they needed to prepare something if they lost, which they ended up losing. And so as they were losing, they held up a self-made sign called Free Hong Kong, Boycott Blizz. And then all of them sort of declared absent some sort of like major mea culpa from Blizzard that they were going to drop a game that had been a significant part of their lives. So that's kind of where all things sort of stand right now, absent all sorts of the other tangents, Tim Sweeney, blah, blah, blah. We can get into that as we go along. But, that's the thrust of it, of where we're at the moment.
Yeah, which again, broader context includes things like Apple pulling an app that was letting Hong Kong protesters track police presence. Like, it is not.
I think they also took a Tibetan flag from like the emoji.
I believe it was the Taiwanese flag. Maybe it was both.
Taiwanese flag,
but the thing that I'd read was the Taiwan flag. And I do want to say, I want to just preface everything that we say, which is like, though we've all done reading on this, none of us are experts in this space, and so like, please recognize that what we're doing is doing our best with the knowledge that we have. This stuff has been really interesting to see, and it's really hard. It's very onion-like. There's lots of layers here because what I see is a lot of people upset over really important things to be upset about. Like I've said this before, I think self-determination is one of the most important things when you look at like the demands, the specific demands that the Hong Kong protesters have about specifically about things like this extradition law, but also the moves towards real sovereignty and real full suffrage and stuff like that. Those are demands that I think most of us would support in our own lives if we felt that they were threatened. Why I say it's onion-like is that often what we see is the ways in which the people who are like rah, 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 fuck China are also some of the people who are like rah 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 fuck Colin Kaepernick, or rah 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 like I'm totally happy with these same similar sorts of getting rid of the Voting Rights Act, those sorts of things. And so you end up needing
the Marco Rubios of the world.
The Marco Rubio, specifically the Marco Rubios of the world.
Specifically the Marco, because there were two senators, Ron Wyden and Marco Rubio, that spoke out on this. And I mean, it is not necessarily just that the left or Democrats are excluded from doing sort of scare tactics when it regards to China that suits their own means. But folks like Marco Rubio specifically, you should look at with deep cynicism when they say decide to pounce on a story like this, because it fits a larger, broader narrative in which they're pushing a certain agenda towards China that it does not necessarily line up with things they otherwise, if that's what they believed, they would be backing certain things in America and other places. They absolutely are not, because it fits into a broader ideology.
Rob, you had something else here.
Well, this is one of the things that begins to make, there's the issue you're discussing, but then just the act of having that discussion raises issues around what gets discussed and what doesn't, how things are discussed, what we prioritize in terms of the attention we pay to different issues. I think one of the things this really exposes, or at least it underlines, is that there is a great deal of instrumentalization of human rights concerns and liberal and democracy when it serves more when it serves geopolitical interests of the state. And so I think one of the things that is really clear as we see the discussion around this issue is that it is hard to trust that people discussing the Hong Kong protests are doing so in good faith, or are doing so from a place of having a broader context than the fact that this is now a front page news story that is temporarily front of mind. And so I think it gets really messy in that it's very easy to look at the way this is being covered and the attention being paid to it by CEO types, by executive types, by news media, and the concern over the crackdown on Hong Kong protesters. It is very easy to be cynical about that, because obviously, like, who does it serve to portray China as a violent, repressive power? It doesn't just serve pro-democracy advocates. It also serves the interests of people who want a more confrontational foreign policy, who want a more imperialist policy in East Asia. Right. And so it is difficult to take in good faith a lot of the people who suddenly are saying, well, look at Hong Kong. We must stand up for the rights of the protesters in Hong Kong, when a lot of those same voices absolutely have participated in human rights abuses in other places, in other contexts. And if they haven't, a lot of the people for whom this issue has become somewhat pressing or somewhat notable, but who don't generally pay much attention to international news, a lot of those people, it's not necessarily folks like that are acting in bad faith, but it is easy to be concerned, and I think this is fairly just, to say that they are being very reactive to a framing being put around this issue that doesn't necessarily provide a great deal of context, both over that issue, but also where else human rights abuses, where else anti-democratic movements might be underway.
For me, a thing that I keep coming back to in line with that is like, who do we expect to hold accountable? When do we expect our leaders, both in politics and in business and everywhere else, to intervene? And how consistent do we expect them to be? I bring this up because we're in the middle of similar protests in Ecuador right now over austerity measures being pursued by a neoliberal government with regard to fuel pricing. And I don't expect everyone to be, at the top of their global politics game. The state of the world is vast, and I don't expect everyone to be like on top of everything. But this is a similar protest that gains very little international coverage. And it is hard not to fall into the set of it's not hard to. I think it's worth taking a step back and saying, okay, well, what draws our eyes to Hong Kong versus Ecuador? Which is also...
Or who drew your eyes
exactly.
there.
Specifically, the Ecuadorian protests are being led by indigenous groups also, right? Like, these are people who maybe don't have access to the levers of power, who don't have great PR firms behind their backs, who don't literally have outside funding from Western neoliberal democracies supporting their protests, none of which undermines the fact that I think that it is just to criticize China for human rights abuses. And this is the dilemma that you're in if you are, for instance, on the left and online, is like, how do I find a degree of consistency, support movements that I think are genuine, while also being concerned about the ways in which there is consent being manufactured for particular types of governance, be concerned and critical about the ways in which global power is being used to kind of make a homogeneous vision of what democracy should look like. And generally, like, how do you achieve a degree of criticality that is not reactive, like you said, Rob, but active and begins with a questioning and a like, okay, what is actually happening here? Can I list what the demands are? There are specific demands of this group. I'm curious if people know what they are. I'm curious if people understand like how multifaceted this group is, and how, I've seen lots of people like, yeah, fuck communism. And it's like, well, there is a degree of that here, but what is actually inside of the group here? Like, a specific note there, the comment that was it Blitzchung who was asked what is happening in Hong Kong, and he said white terror, which, if you know nothing, maybe if you're from the West, you hear white terror, you go like, lol, white people. But white terror is a specific like 40 or 50 year period of anti-communist violence and oppression in Taiwan that is now being deployed here in Hong Kong in a different context that's been kind of desituated from that context and resituated here. And I'm not saying you necessarily need a PhD in this stuff to start weighing in, but even I who know that, it's like, okay, I don't know enough to begin to do specific analysis that gets me to the point where I can be like, rah, 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 that's it.
But I think the thing that I also hesitate over is that there's also there is an element of hand washing that goes on when we say, I don't know enough, or this is not my lane, because like, it's true. There are a lot of contexts, and there's a lot of specific history to this. Like, what were the conditions under which British colonial control over Hong Kong was ended and the territory returned to China? What was the deal that was made? What did people in Hong Kong think they were getting back in 1997?
Right.
But what we also do know is that while a great deal of focus on human rights and exporting of freedom and democracy in the West tends to be very self-interested and very much about cloaking more imperial or corporate interests in the language of human rights, at the same time, China is a country that is tending to get more repressive than it has been in recent years, or more blatantly repressive. But
we have not even talked about the Uyghur stuff now, right? Like, we haven't even talked
Yeah.
about it once in this conversation. An ongoing human rights situation in the northwest of China, where ethnic Muslims have been targeted again and again. It is a serious issue that is undercovered. And for me, it's like, well, it's undercovered because it complicates. It does not fit super cleanly into established media molds. But yeah, like, I don't want to do the hand washing and the curtain pulling and be like, well, let's not look at the stuff that makes our critiques of Western imperialism harder, because now we also have to contend with these oppression from non-Western imperialist states. I'm with you. Like, I don't think that for me, the actual takeaway here is that these things are not actually opposed. These things are in league, right? Like the fact that a Blizzard or the NBA or Apple is so willing and eager to continue working with China, to continue working with America, to continue working, with imperial powers worldwide is indicative of what they're in it for, right? Like for me, like the takeaway should be, if we ever wanted to have mass action here in the States, do not count on tech companies or sports leagues or our game publishers to have our backs, right? If the FBI wants your chat logs from a Blizzard game, let me tell you, they're going to get them, right? Like that is open and shut. And so like that is for me, like my most important takeaway from this stuff is that we can't necessarily rely on building mass movements through technologies owned by huge corporations that are fundamentally going to be in favor of keeping a status quo where they are in the good graces of any government where they think they have a market, which could be the Chinese market or the American market or the European market, right? Or any market worldwide that is big enough. The Indian market for that matter, right? Like there's stuff happening there right now. Anyway.
Well, I think where we get really screwed is that all our discourse, so much of our media, is defined by things that have their roots in post-war liberalism, and then sort of the more neoliberal realignment that happened across the 80s and 90s. But so much of the more brutal or hypocritical aspects of just take U.S. foreign policy here for a second. You had to get liberals to buy into that. Like it was in order to wage the Cold War, you couldn't just do it with like right-wing reactionaries, with sort of what were then traditional Republicans. You couldn't just do it on their backs alone. You needed liberals to buy in. You needed liberals to reach the conclusion that while there were unfortunate and unsavory things that confronting the communist menace would require, it was indeed a menace, and you had to get your hands dirty, and you had to do these things. And that war couldn't have been prosecuted without the acquiescence and participation of liberals and liberal media. And what's interesting is as the Soviet Union breaks apart, the thing that is proposed in the 90s is that we can do business with China, and China specifically. In Russia, there's all about we're going to sell all the public assets into private hands, et cetera, kleptocracy. But with China, what's really interesting is suddenly you have this thing that was sort of parroted throughout the Cold War of two things go in hand: political freedom and economic freedom in the more libertarian sense. Yeah. If free markets, free people, if we just allow people to do business in a capitalist marketplace, freedom and democracy will follow. That is the pattern. And that was kind of the thing that that a lot of media and a lot of the consensus around China specifically was pitched towards, is this idea that, hey, as we open the Chinese market, we're also going to see beneficial effects from that society opening up and maybe allowing more ideological diversity, more political participation than we necessarily saw under, say Mao during the Cultural Revolution or under Deng around Tiananmen Square. That hasn't happened. And there was actually no real reason to suspect that it should, because corporatism coexists quite happily with fascism, with authoritarianism. In fact, maybe more happily, because people sometimes vote for things that are inconvenient for corporations, whereas if you can just do direct business with the government, or the government is the business, then things are great. But it makes it really hard to discuss these issues because we still have a media apparatus that shoots things through this lens of really self-interested liberalism and isn't always super self-aware, because you have to do a bit of double think to say, no, the United States absolutely stands for human rights everywhere and in all places, and human dignity and democracy. You're either a schmuck, or you've mastered the art of doublethink, where you know that's not true, but also in your heart it is true. And I think that makes it tough to discuss, because so much of what we consume as media, so much of what we have to look at, so many political figures run everything through that filter, and you end up kind of in this hall of mirrors. And it gets really frustrating to discuss, because everywhere you turn, there's an asterisk here, an elision here, and a mission here. But then that doesn't change the fact that there have been some pretty violent crackdowns in Hong Kong against these protesters. There have been a lot of broken promises from mainland China to people in Hong Kong over the past decades. And China is also running massive detention camps and repression against the Uyghur people. Those things are also true.
Which is like, for me, the thing that you get to there is on this notion of doublethink. If you sat down with the folks running the NBA, if you sat down with Apple, you sit down with Blizzard, you sit down with, maybe I'm straw manning this actually, but let me straw man it for a moment and propose that I suspect that if push come to shove, you asked someone in these businesses, well, why is it important to work with China? They would peddle something about soft power dressed up, right? Like they would say, well, we think over a long enough time, being part of the marketplace helps spread democratic values. We like to give people the option of choice. We think being part of this culture helps to create, a broader global community. We think the NBA is an important inroad to the people of China for providing a cultural bridge between our peoples. We think that the esports is a place that can bring these communities together long term. Again, all of that stuff is like soft pedaled, soft power shit, right? Which is like, hey, changing the world doesn't need to be done at the end of a gun. It can be done with culture. It can be done with kind of like the spread of a homogeneous vision of what like entertainment looks like. And yet here they walk that back and say, but if you're going to be making that culture for us, if you're going to be a player in our league, or in our e-league, or in whatever, like, no, you can't actually, the promise is the marketplace and the shared culture will make it so that, in China will look more like America. In China, eventually, you will have a wide range freedom of speech. But in order to get there, first of all, shut your fucking mouth. Like, don't ruin this by speaking first. And that is like where the whole thing ends up falling. That whole project, the project of we should work with, we should let business be our guide in bridging these gaps and in changing the world, falls apart because it reveals that underneath it all is a willingness to be deeply hypocritical about that. If the NBA's long-term goal is building bridges and trying to reshape this part of China so that it is more like us, if the method to getting there is James Harden has to shut his mouth or apologize, if Blizzard's idea is like, well, we think games connect everyone around the world, well, you've immediately literally disconnected people by saying you can't be in this league anymore because you've spoken out again, because you've used your right to free speech in a way we're not comfortable with. I just want to underscore that I think everyone on this, speaking for myself at least, I think this is a fucking huge mistake on Blizzard's part. I can believe that they did this, but it is frustrating, and I hope that they...
It's extremely disproportionate.
Deeply.
Given, I would not have been, it's understandable to some degree that it's like, okay, like, the moment you allow some level of political speech, like, where do you, start drawing that line? And so it's like, I can see, why an esports platform would be like, you know what? Sorry, just all across the board, not going to allow it. But then to take that out, take his money away. I mean, it's...
To take his money away, it's wild, man.
And a full year ban. It's the disproportionate response that feels like it's sending a really chilling message along with it, I think, is what has led a lot of people to to be as angry as they are, because it just doesn't feel like, and with no real like explanation to go along with it, right? Like it's been humorous to watch the NBA like fumble their way forward as they've been like constantly in front of. For people who don't know, part of the reason this is blowing up with the NBA is because it's the preseason,
right? And
part of the preseason in the NBA is they do a lot of games internationally, and the Rockets specifically have a huge, hugely profitable a team that is very popular in China because they had a player from China. So they're constantly in front of cameras, forced to explain themselves over and over again. So you get Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, like people who otherwise would like go on for 15 minutes to eloquently speak on like any subject pulled out of a hat. And on this one, they're like, next question. And so Blizzard has said nothing. Internally, they have said nothing. Externally, they've said nothing. Their best out is probably actually to say nothing. But here's the thing that's kind of like, I've been thinking about this whole time. Like, BlizzCon is in 3 weeks. BlizzCon was a disaster for them last year over the Diablo mobile stuff, which was so blown out.
But was tied to this. This is the thing that's fucked up, right? Is like, think back. This is why it's such a fucking weird onion to unpeel, is because if you go back and look at the reactions to the Diablo mobile game, half of it was weird yellow peril shit. Right? Half of it was like, the Chinese are going to make that game. They're just going to make a Chinese mobile game. And it's like, there are so many layers of grossness layered on top of each other here that that include the response to that specific announcement. It is a lot. But anyway, sorry, to your point, you're right. 3 weeks from now, what happens?
Yeah, they have live Q&As. They're going to have at this point, I expect them to not say anything. I expect them to try and just, do what a lot of other, the NBA, I don't know, has helped their cause by trying to talk through it. I think Blizzard is just going to shut their mouth and roll to BlizzCon and Diablo 4.
Yeah, Diablo 4.
Here you go. But it's, the little I know from the folks that are over there, like it's a very stressful time because you have a company acting in a way that does not, feel in line with the values of a lot of the people there. And that's, I know that feel. And
really quick,
that's gotta be
I just want to go back and just clarify one final point that I made before, but maybe I didn't put the capper on it, which is like, when I talk about that double speak and the double think, you say with your mouth that the reason you want to be part of the kind of cultural imperialist project is you want to make parts of the world where there is oppression happening and there are human rights violations more like the liberal West. But at the same time, you're kind of retracting or silencing people who speak against your own involvement in those places or who speak against the oppression in those places. The underlying thing for me is those companies don't give a fuck about human rights violations. There might be people in those companies who care about those things, for sure. Of course there are. I mean, you look at the Blizzard campus, people are fucking pissed. You mentioned before, people at the statue are going out and showing like, hey, we are not upholding these values that you say we have. Because as a company, they don't have that value as a not as a collection of individuals, but as like a profit-driven organization where individual.
It's marketing.
Exactly. And it's marketing often to the people who work there. Why should you come to be at Blizzard? Because it's a family. Because here are the values we espouse.
And people believe it. Like when you talk to folks that like that has been part of the Blizzard ethos. That ethos has sort of fallen apart in like the last couple of years specifically. But like that's not bullshit. Like that is, I mean, it's propaganda in its own right. But like people believed it. Like this is a good place to work with good people who make good things. And we're making the world a better place. And like that was a mantra that people believed
and worked towards, they aspired to. I'm not saying that people in the trenches and in the cubes are not working towards. It's probably an open office, probably no cubes. But at desks are not like how do I achieve my best self and make this place better. But I think that as a kind of freewheeling or as like a living organism, you cannot trust the corporation as a thing, as an institution, to think about human rights violations, only insofar as it impacts profit. Like really, truly, only that much. You cannot count on it to change the world except to find new vectors for profit. And sometimes those vectors are looking the other way from human rights violations or working with companies or with nations that are continuing to pursue them. Rob, you had something else here too.
No, I was going to say I think you can count on companies,
right? Yes, yes.
But to do the opposite of what you want,
yes.
there's no point at which any sort of like golden era of American corporate governments or labor and management partnership was itself founded, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, like this idea of liberalism pretended that tensions that were sort of settled in blood, sweat, and tears were somehow default states of nature,
right,
that you didn't have to maintain anymore, that you didn't have to be a countervailing force against. Any sort of golden era of American business was itself founded on people forcing companies to change the way they did business, forcing them to change their behavior, change the things they prioritized. That work was incomplete in its success. But like I think if you follow Edward over at Motherboard, one of the stories that he's been covering lately is all the tech firms and tech workers who find that their work is associated with the work that ICE does. That GitHub has a contract with ICE to allow ICE to use GitHub contributions to build software. These are things that both when it comes to repression in China or repression and human rights abuses here in the United States, there are a lot of people who didn't think their work was part of that or didn't want their work to be part of that. And what they find again and again is, as an employee, companies don't want you thinking about that. They don't want you to feel like you are entitled to have an opinion or a position on whether your labor should be furthering or advancing these interests.
Yeah.
And that's the thing they're desperately trying to ignore. And I think the strategy is going to be similar to what Patrick was saying. Just write it out, right? Oh, you're unhappy today because we overreacted. Our bad. But in the end, if we just sort of close our eyes hard enough and pretend this isn't happening and pretend that these tensions don't exist, maybe we can get to the place we're at with, Saudi oil money and Middle Eastern ruling families, right? Where there's a lot of people enjoying soccer games and soccer teams that aren't necessarily like, I'm on a podcast about Formula One. We end up going to a lot of places with a lot of repression.
Yeah.
But because there's no expectation that things should be any different, people tend to fall silent. I think that's kind of the awful thing of our time is if you just never respond.
The wheel keeps spinning, Recognize that moment.
THQ Nordic will do something.
Yes. Yeah. The thing that I want to say there is like that silence indicates vulnerability. There's a common way of thinking about the Sunday morning news shows, which is when the White House doesn't send anyone, it's because they're fucking terrified of being asked questions. Normally you send out people to start spinning stuff for you when stuff is bad.
Yeah.
But when you're not even doing the spin, that's because you're in trouble and that opening your mouth in any way could fuck you up. So, hey, if you're at Blizzard, if you're at the NBA, if you're at one of these places, if you're at Apple, if you're at a company that is pursuing a practice that they don't want to answer for, make them answer for it. Keep raising your voices there, right? I say that here as someone who's been at a company advice where like we've had to do that work. We've had to speak up in a way that has made billionaires mad at us in the past at this company to try to hold them accountable for things. And it's when they don't want to talk about it that you know that you actually have found the issue where you actually have a little leverage. Because it's when they come out like, well, we're listening, that you like, they're going to fucking weasel worm their way out of this shit. Like they're going to find this, we've listened loud and clear. We've heard from people all around the company about what your values are, and we want to incorporate those values into our values or whatever. We want to reflect the diversity of opinion that the company has. And like that shit, you're not going to get anywhere. But in a moment like this, I can imagine there being this ongoing conversation building into something else if the folks inside who are pissed continue to stay pissed, continue to stay active, not just angry, but active, and continue to build support. And again, like for me, so much of this ends up coming back to like worker organization. There's no, if one of the ways in which I have seen companies be held accountable for things that go beyond worker abuses and go towards business decisions is already having an organization together where workers can pull their concerns and wield some degree of power. Having an organization, having a guild, having a union that represents, that is able to, away from the company campus, get people together and go, how do we feel about this? And should we do something about this? Should we ask them to respond during one of the times where they've agreed to respond to us? Those, having a union allows you to do that, right? Like that's like a small benefit that I think maybe people, or not a not so small benefit that people don't think about when it comes to unions, is that when you have a union, the company has to take a meeting with you on certain amount of times per year. And at those meetings, you can hold them to the fire a little bit and at least make them say things or refuse to say things on the record in such a way that then they can be held accountable for. And it's hard to do that if you're one person at a desk. It's way easier to do that if you are a big group. Partially, this is why protests are effective, is because mass power is real. Mass power holds those in power accountable. And for me, at the end of the day, like if I have to err in one direction, it's going to be towards mass power. Anyway,
I am curious. One thing that's interesting about this moment in particular is that, you should always give pause when you find yourself both Gamergate and elements of the left. Like, there's been a mix. Like, part of the reason this has been so toxic and huge is because both sides have found themselves pointing ire in the same direction when it's usually those sorts of sides are coming into conflict with one another over whatever the skirmish is that day. And so, like, when I interviewed those college students, they struck me as genuine. They struck me as, kids that actually on some level as 19-year-olds, like, cared what was going on or at least were aware of it. But that's what makes things like BlizzCon and what happens going forward so interesting, because it's going to be so easy to set Blizzard off. Like, if all it takes is a sign, like where does this end? Where does the line, like, you know what I mean? Like, how much can they realistically do? Like, it's not difficult for anyone to like throw a wrench in the gears, and it's not going to take someone who's politically minded to do it. It could just be someone who just wants to, fuck with people. And so like that just makes with this mixture of people who are responding to it so interesting. It's why you get 24 hours ago, is there an extremely viral tweet, like 20,000 retweets, in which someone said, "Oh man, Blizzard's stopping us from deleting our accounts." And it's like, okay, it is possible that maybe they would have put a stop to that. Is it more possible that, like, boy, not usually an international incident is causing a disproportionate amount of people try to access their accounts and the servers are overloaded. And even that person whose this tweet went viral admitted about an hour later, like, oh yeah, I was able to delete my tweet. Didn't delete the viral tweet because, look, when you got 70 followers and something's been shared 20,000 times, you like that social currency. But it just makes for a really interesting moment. Yeah. Like when Mark Kern, who, yes, he did work on World of Warcraft. Like there is on some level, I can, okay. But like, a chief proponent of Gamergate, someone who wrapped Gamergate around himself. Like when you find, like, I've seen people who should know better, who just either forgot or don't remember or are not ignorant or choosing to be ignorant of who folks like Mark Kern are. When you find yourself like tweeting, quote tweeting, sharing stuff that people like that said, like, you need to, the moment you're agreeing with Marco Rubio or Mark Kern is a moment to take a breath, think about what's going on, and decide like which path which path you're walking forward. Just take a deep breath, because that's usually fraught.
There are often ways to get at what you want to say. I guess like the thing is, we talk about this a lot with this podcast, is the thing I'm proudest of, or that when people say I love your podcast because X, the thing that strikes me the most tends to be, I had this feeling, I thought I understood something, you helped me understand it and give me language for it, and that's like really moving to be like, oh wow, yeah, we helped figure out a way to talk about an issue that you had at your front of your mind. In moments of crisis, sometimes you reach for whatever is closest, and that is how you end up with a Mark Kern retweet on your timeline.
Or in the New York Times.
Or in the New York Times, for instance. Pump the brakes. There is no... If what you're talking about is tweeting, there is no rush. You don't have to rush to get your retweet like out there. If you were in the streets, we could have a different conversation about crises. If you're out there like performing medical aid for people, move quick. You know, I'm not saying like check who the person retweeted before you apply your medical aid. Like, no. That's not what the fuck I'm saying at all. But when it comes to like, yeah, I'm fucking pissed. Retweet. Like, it's when I see someone retweet Sean King or Seth Abramson in 2019 and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get that you're mad, but just pump the brakes.
What I love, I think it's and then even people who know better on like a Seth Abramson are like, all right, you know I don't share Seth Abramson tweets. Which, look, one positive benefit of that you could take some cosmic benefits is that watching a lot of people just like step in it. Watching Stephen A. Smith all of a sudden be like, you know. Why don't they talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, huh?
Max Kellerman's blinks will be with me forever. We were actually blessed.
Go look up that clip if you haven't seen it.
We were blessed with two great Stephen A. Smith things this week. First, him trying to say no one talks about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and he couldn't finish his thought because they threw the commercial. Two, Max Kellerman just dragging the Knicks, just dragging the New York Knicks as Stephen A. Smith just collapses in on him. Just like you know how Pac-Man would do the thing where he like unfolds himself until there's nothing left. That's what happened to Stephen A. this week when Max went in on the Knicks. Well, now we've talked about Stephen A. Smith, so I think that means we can step out of this.
It's a full circle Waypoint
Absolutely.
podcast.
Any other final thoughts on this particular news of the week? I know it's a big one, and like I said before, we try to do our best to hit this from as many angles as possible, or as comprehensive a perspective as possible, because I do think it is more complicated than the retweet might say, but also demands response. I think to your point, Rob, like sometimes you want to you want to be like, I can't touch this one at all. And knowing when like, but you could is important. And it's about doing that work and getting yourself to the point where you could, add your voice when it makes sense to.
Yeah, the week baited us into
this. It fucking did.
We like summit.
Unbelievable.
Like that podcast ended with like, and then was just like.
It's so funny. God.
I was like, I'm so glad I'm on vacation. Like Patrick was like, I'm having fever hallucinations. And I was like, damn, Patrick's having a week. I should maybe cut this vacation short.
No way.
No way. I'm going to
Take
watch
your
TV
vacation.
instead.
No way. Fuck that. Stay on vacation. Come play Final Fantasy 15 with me. 14? What am I playing? 14. 14. That's the one. Jesus.
It's Austin's Final Fantasy story. Sometimes I wonder, man, I wish I had more free time. And other times I go,
okay, here's my defense. Actually, this is the thing that I actually, there is actually something here that is like,
I thought we'd close this.
No. This is not about the game, but it is about the mode of play. I think a lot of the frustration I have when I'm playing this game is because it isn't productive. And this is more of like, I need to fucking take my own medicine. I need to like actually listen to my own words. But Rob, you remember a few months ago when I was like, it's okay to do something that isn't productive?
Oh, yes.
And then you made
somebody remixed that and set it to music.
They did do that. It's very good. This is that for me to some degree. And that's why I'm chafing against it so hard, is that it's so much downtime, and it's not downtime that I can be engaged with in that critical sense. Like, yes, I can drag the weird, like, anti-indigenous subtext of... not subtext, main text, surface text of this game. But moment to moment, what I'm mostly doing is hitting 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 3. And like that, I'm not engaged the way I am with, like, you listen to me talk about John Wick Hex. I'm trying to like analyze every moment of that game to see like, how is it communicating a sense of tension and tactics. That's not what's happening in Final Fantasy XIV. I'm just kind of like, I'm just kind of like coasting, and it is probably important for me to teach myself how to coast again, to like put on a podcast, turn off my brain for a few hours a day, play this game before bed, and like chill. Like that is part of why I've made this big life change. But it's hard to do. It is genuinely hard to do. And so I'm like, that's part of why I'm sticking with it. Is like, let me try to cultivate this type of feeling again, so that I can do other stuff that's in the similar like space, which is hard for me right now. Rob is grinning because he doesn't believe me.
No, I'm just skeptical. So it's kind of like everything you were saying there made sense. But then the end point was, it's really important that I have this sort of chill, unstructured time, just playing this sort of silly game, because I'm going to do something with this. I am cultivating useful skill.
It is
and
a
that
skill.
is wasting time.
It is.
Yeah, but
I'm not
feel
gonna.
like,
I get that I'm dressing it up. I
you
get
break
that
the
I'm
magic
using.
the moment you become aware of it.
No.
The moment you become aware of it, you break it.
No, because magicians still
You're like, I am building
magicians
the
still
time-wasting skill.
Magicians still appreciate the craft of other magicians, even though they know the trick. You don't have to stop. You don't have to pretend to not know the language of analysis to get yourself to a place to appreciate that you're not doing analysis. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is not... Magicians don't only get excited when they're tricked. They often get excited when they see others get tricked by a good craftsman.
Yeah.
In this case, I remember a time in my life when I was very busy, when I was in grad school, but still had the ability to play an MMO or to go for a 3-hour walk and not feel like I'm wasting my time. And I'm slowly getting back to that place, but I'm never going to get to a place where I'm not going to pretend that that's not a skill I'm cultivating. That's a skill. Like, and it's not in the same way that I'm never going to pretend to write a review that isn't subjective. Like, I know it's subjective. I know it's a skill. It's okay to admit that that's those things. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to put blinders on and be like, yes, no, I'm just going back to a pure me. Like, no, it's an exercise. You know, it is, and that's okay. It's okay that I have to exercise at being someone who can, once again, go for a 3-hour walk or sit down and play an MMO for 3 hours without pulling my hair out. Right now, I'm still pulling my hair out. Right now, an hour and a half into that 3-hour walk, I'm still going like, I gotta get back. There has to be something else I have to get done today. Otherwise, I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight. And like, it's gonna take effort to get to there, and I'm not at the point yet where I can pretend that effort isn't real. I get what you're saying, but I don't think it maps for me. You know, different strokes, man. You have such a naturalist way about you that I don't have, in which you already have such an appreciation for that style of like exploration and sort of long time. And I've lost it.
Well, sort of, except I spent a good portion of my vacation thinking about that exact issue and being like, damn, like even with no Waypoint stuff to do during the day, where did the day go? I didn't do enough. I wasn't productive enough. And productive in the ways I wanted it to be, which is like, I didn't make my crummets.
I wish you had.
You know, I didn't play. I didn't play enough of games that had nothing to do with work. I didn't hang out and just read, and so I spent a good portion of this break being like, "Damn, I have lost the ability to like have that good unstructured downtime. What I better do is create a list of downtime pursuits I want to engage in.
That I don't do,
and then cross those things off the list.
That's too far.
And so like." Yeah, but see, I think that's kind of what you're going to. You're going to Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah,
and Final Fantasy XIV is like, hey, you got to crush these indigenous peoples and bring them to heal. And you're like, so what you're saying is, I need to learn just how to be.
I just got to relax
with like time
because
passing.
you have to. If you played Final Fantasy XIV, you would understand this, Rob. Because mostly I'm not crushing the indigenous peoples behind my heel. Mostly I'm doing a heavy shot over and over 30 times to something called a what is it fucking called?
Does your character say the name of the attack?
No, it's like heavy shot. No,
damn,
it's not. I'm like a big dope cat guy though. Like not a cat boy, like a lion. Like what if a lion, a cat man? Exactly.
Hell yeah.
Exactly.
A lion-o.
I'm like more hunched over than lion-o. I look good. It's a good look.
Like Beast?
Sort of like Beast.
Yeah.
Sort of like Beast. But more lion-y even than Beast is. Man, Beast is cool. All right. On that note, we should end this podcast. If you have questions
Were you talking about Disney Beast or
I was talking about X-Men Beast.
Yeah.
But you're right. More like Disney Beast, but kind of in the middle. If there's a middle ground between Disney Beast and X-Men Beast, that's the character I'm playing. Gamingadvice.com. I'm an archer. Yeah, it's the whole thing. I'm kind of going against type.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Gamingadvice.com. I've given this a lot of thought.
Yeah.
Here's the email address if you have questions or comments about any of the things we've said today. Most of us get those emails. Someone here should make sure Patrick gets those emails. Or don't.
Made it this far.
Here's the thing, though. I will put this out there again. Patrick, you did tweet out saying that if you are at a place like Blizzard right now, feel free to reach out to us. You can do that style of reach out.
Yeah, I have a signal. Yeah, I have a signal number. I can list off. 224-707-1561. That's 224-707-1561. I know one thing I'll mention is that I heard for one person over a different thing recently over a signal in which they were like, stinks. In Signal, you got to put your own phone number in. Yeah, I agree. I wish it would generate a number for you. It doesn't. It uses your phone number and exposes that to the person that you choose to reach out to. So do what I did, and what a lot of people do is go make a free Google Voice number. You can just get that'll forward to your. You can have that forward to your phone, and it can be used as your Signal number, and then you can mask your cell phone number if that is something that understandably would give you pause.
So yeah, if you have thoughts from inside a company like this, definitely reach out because it is hard to find a place to give your voice a platform right now. A real one, especially when you know that you're at a company that punishes speaking out about this shit. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm Austin Walking. Find me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Cado, where can people find you?
At @A_Cado_appears.
Patrick.
At Patrick
And
Club.
Rob.
At Rob Zachney.
Thank you all for joining us this week. We'll be back next Monday. What's coming out?
Not Monday.
Oh, you're right. We have off on Monday.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Shout outs Indigenous Peoples Day. What are we doing next week? We should decide what we're doing next week.
What is coming
Yeah,
out next
something's
week?
happening. I think Tuesday. Did we land on Tuesday?
I could do a Tuesday.
Doing Tuesday.
Probably.
I think we'll do a Tuesday.
Well, I mean, it comes out Monday night anyway, normally, right? So
Right.
Tuesday.
Well, it'll
evening.
be like Tuesday night. So a day later.
Hey, you know what comes out next? Was it? Let's see, Tuesday. Overwatch on Switch.
Overwatch on Switch.
Huh.
See how that goes. God, I really want to know. I really want to see if there's even the tiniest dip in Anyway, is Killer Queen Black really coming out next week?
Like
Yeah.
actually?
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
it's a good game. Although really a game you want to play in person
Oh,
with
there's a
people.
news bit that we didn't talk about. You know I'm critical of Steam. You know I'm critical of Valve. You know that I'm like, do you see this new feature that they're putting out with couch co-op?
Oh yeah,
It's
is dope.
fucking dope. I
Yeah.
wish this was here a few years ago when these games were huge.
I know. Yeah, the short version is that they're gonna, when they had these local multiplayer games, the Gang Beasts of the world, and there was like a real local multiplayer explosion. There was always people understandably frustrated that there wasn't netcode, so you could play them over the internet. And developers would constantly be like, "It's not like a switch you turn on. You don't just add multiplayer."
Which is
so lots
true.
Of these games
Yeah.
didn't get that. Yeah. And Steam is apparently and Valve are going to sort of like circumvent that, and there will be a way to essentially flip any local multiplayer game into one that you can do online, which is really not dissimilar to what emulators allow you to do with old games, where you can play with people through a ROM. So that's cool. Like that's genuinely useful, especially for smaller studios that can then point to and say, yeah, well, we didn't have the time and resources, but if you download it in Steam, you can do it there. That's cool. I wish they do more of that and less of the other stuff.
Absolutely. I want to try that out. I'll have to look through my library of games and find something that I'm desperate to play with somebody else. So, ironically, it is funny because Killer Queen Black, or the original Killer Queen, almost predated that scene blowing up on PC games.
And it purposely was arcade only
yes.
for that was their whole bit, was we want people to play it with other people in a room, and so we're just only going to release it on arcades. And I as someone that played a bunch of that, because there were a handful of those machines in Chicago, it was a game that I'm sure is still fun online, but greatly benefits from yelling at people in a room.
Totally. All right, that is going to do it for us this week. We will catch you next Tuesday for another episode of Waypoint Radio. Peace. All right. How the fuck has Little Town Hero not gotten a U.S. release date yet? That's that new Game Freak game.
Wait, it hasn't? I thought that was.
I think that's.
Yeah, in the
hitting...
direct.
Oh, did it? Did it get a date? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I may have missed that. So I remember the Toby Fox soundtrack stuff. I didn't know if it actually got a North American date. Is that also? Okay. I thought that was a Japanese date, so that's good. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
That's exactly a game that a year ago would have come out on the 3DS, and I would have never played because it was out on the 3DS.
Right.
Here's a fun thing I need someone to do. Can someone log in to my podcast notes and share them with my personal email? I haven't changed them or anything because I haven't been able to.
I'll get it right
but just for the future, because
I got it.
Thank you, Rob. My email turned off in the middle of the day yesterday again, which is very strange. Okay. This thing has not come through yet, but we're just going to go with it. Today is the 11th. This is coming out on the 11th.
Yeah.
And what's the episode number, Cado?
270.
270. Okay. That's time.is. That still works.
Oh, Cado, my last track was after I'd updated my recorder, right? Were there any of those artifacts on the last podcast we did?
Nope. You would have heard from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything was fine.
Cool.
Okay, so hopefully whatever that was.
Yeah, hopefully that holds.
You want to do 7 seconds.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, no, damn. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Did you need to warm your hands up?
No, dude, it's 101.6. Like, just do not test
not
me
today.
right now.
Not today. 23 seconds.
I do not have it.
All right.
You're still
cold.
clocking at 101.6?
That's
No, it dropped, but I've been by myself. It's been a long week. I've made it work. Let's record a podcast.
all right.